November 28th at 13:20 Atlantic Daylight Time. We're starting at the Heartland Point Golf Club and heading eastward along the eastern shore. See here, there's a pebble cobble beach with a more coarse substrate in the near shore. Debris line and the storm limit just at the edge of the trees. As you come around the corner, you're getting into the inlet area of Cow Bay, where the inlet has changed tremendously since the 1950s. See quite a narrow entrance right now with a recurve ridge going into it and extensive marsh in behind. As we go in front of Cow Bay Beach, which is actually used to be called Silver Sands Beach, we've got primarily a pebble cobble beach with more sand showing up towards the east side with some cobble and gravel cusps. Driving along the road towards Osborne Head, you can see there's been artificial riprap added. And onto Osborne Head itself, we have a till cliff with some reinforcing at the end. Side of Osborne Head, again we have till cliffs about 10 meters to 12 meters high, a fair number of boulders exposed, and we have consequently a boulder pebble cobble beach fringing the front of them, seaward side of them, and you can see some debris that's been added by some people. Just at the corner of the headland, Osborne Head, again another truncated drumlin. And on the eastern side, we've got a more stabilized slope in view here, and more erosive on the seaward side. By the village of Cow Bay, we see some places that near the church where we have riprap, and then further along the shore we've got generally some bedrock exposures at the headlands with the gravel pebble cobble beach. Here you can see it's sealed off a small lagoon with the marsh in behind, and if you look closely you can see the bedrock exposures on that corner. The waves coming in at a slight angle today, probably less than a meter in height. Coming up on Pensy Head, this is about 10 meter elevation at the crest. We're on a rising tide at the moment. Low tide will be around 1640 this afternoon. To the Coal Harbour marsh establishment. Just going by the campsite, you can see a groin in front of the camp just coming into view. And after that, the shore changes from a riprap to a sand beach with dune development along the provincial park. You just see coming into view with the boardwalks. We're just traveling up into the inlet. It's a couple hundred meters wide, and you can see there's a gravel shoal just off the main beach, and some exposures of pebble cobble at the inlet. But for the most part, it's dune development. Coal Harbour Marsh. You can see the extensive tidal flats, flood tidal deposits in by the rifle range. And then as we get farther into the marsh, we see a much greater marsh development above high tide. Went by the Skeet Club. And we're just going to do a pan view around the marsh up to the old road or railway. You can see there's a few cuts in the railway where the oil, if there was an oil spill, could get through. There's a fairly large channel, tidal channel, going through the old railway bridge just in view now. And then there's one or two other spots that would allow oil to get through. Otherwise, we've got a fairly impermeable structure. As we come around to the east side of the marsh, you've got two other bridges with tidal channels cutting through them. They're just coming into view now. And then as we come out the other side, we'll head seaward again through the inlet. Seaward side of the channel, you can see that the main shoreline is very heterogeneous vegetation and pebble cobble, as well as some bedrock. Just coming out of the seaward end of the inlet, you can see some tidal flat or sand flat development on the inner part of the inlet. And as we come out, you can see some a small gravel foreland just coming into view, and then there's several cuspate features, some of which are controlled by man-made structures. Just at the entrance to the inlet, you again can find some gravel lag, and there's a channel to either side of it going into the inlet. Towards Conrad's Beach. We're going by Conrad's Head. You see it's basically a till cliff shoreline with pebble cobble and some boulder debris. It's a fairly steep shore, just over 10-20 meters, and a severe gullying. In the near shore, you can see some sand deposits with mostly gravel, cobble, debris. Coming into Conrad's Beach, you can see that the inlet has now closed itself over. Conrad's beach, the actual prograding beach ridges are showing up. You can see the various beach ridges and the sand in front of it. And as we come across the entrance to Lawrencetown, you just see the catch the tea house and Lawrencetown Head. The provincial park at Lawrencetown has now got an extensive boardwalk system. The beach today is primarily a sand foreshore, some pebble cobble at the high tide area, followed by the sand dune development that you can see here. Much of the old eroded blowouts and craters have disappeared. As we get farther east along the shore, you see some people in there for scale. The beach, higher beach, is much more pebble cobble, and only the lower beach has a sand material. There's a small development of houses at the far end of Lawrencetown. And Lawrencetown Beach is apparently fed by sand and gravel from this headland coming into view now at Half Island Point. You can see some of the sediment plumes in the water today. We're flying at about 400 feet at about 75 miles per hour. There's some of the plumes just coming into view. There's some backscatter from the waves coming off the shore. Reddish till is a Lawrencetown till. You can see the Half Island Point coming up into view now is a spectacular eroded headland, about 1 to 2 meters a year.
Actually, the average is about 3 to 1.3 meters over the last 15 years. This headland is about 18 to 20 meters high. It's fronted by a shoal close to 100 meters wide, and that's about how much has eroded over the last little while. In fact, on the other side was a continuous beach. In the 40s and 50s, it was mined for the railway, and by the early 70s, it already started to break apart, as you can see now.
Across the terminal beach area, you can see that it's broken down into 2 or 3 shoals now that are gravel, and you can see some recurves just coming in off the eastern side of the beach, with some prograded beach ridges coming off the old drumlin. There's a spectacular suspended sediment plume coming off this cliff as well as the next one.
Here we see a overwashed beach, or an area that used to be an inlet, and then a high, steep erosional cliff. You can see several slope deposits. This is Graham Head, has an elevation of just over 15 meters, and it's fringed by a heterogeneous cobble beach, and a long shoal extends just offshore of it. And we're looking across at the Rat Rock and Wedge Island at 3 Fathom Harbour.
Covering the mouth of 3 Fathom Harbour here, you can see the bedrock exposures at the eastern headland at Bull Rock and Wedge Island area. The bedrock's aligned sort of parallel to the shore at this point. We're just going to circle before we go into 3 Fathom Harbour. You can see the beach itself is still primarily pebble cobble, with several bedrock reefs extending along shore. There you get a really good view of the Wedge Island area. We're just going to go along the eastern side of this peninsula. It's a very small drumlin or till deposit left Wedge Island, with a artificial breakwater joining into the 3 Fathom Harbour fishing quarters. By the fishing village now at 3 Fathom Harbour. You can see the shoal just offshore that is developed back in the inlet. is a sand beach with a bit of cobble at the top of it. Just go into the head of 3 Fathom Harbour. There's not a lot of marsh development. There's a little bit in behind a small beach coming into view in a minute. But for the most part, it's a very shallow inlet, a lot of zostra seagrass. And we're just looking over at that small recurve and out the Causeway Road to 3 Fathom Harbour village. You can see the dark areas, some of that's seagrass. Looking at the prograded recurve spits, mostly pebble cobble on the western side of 3 Fathom Harbour. There's a bit of sand deposits in the lower intertidal, but for the most part it's log debris over pebble cobble and more of a cobble boulder lower intertidal. Out to the headland again of 3 Fathom Harbour, we're getting coming up into a small drumlin Graham Head. Now is 13:35, and we're just heading out of 3 Fathom Harbour, and you've got in the view there Shut-in Island, a very low rocky shore with promontories running east-west along the shore with pocket gravel beaches in between. See right now the waves are breaking on the intertidal rock platform. Cutting across the mouth of 3 Fathom Harbour again, doing another loop, and you can see these those recurve ridges coming into the west side of 3 Fathom Harbour there now. Across, and you can just see the that beach, barrier beach and shoal in the middle of 3 Fathom Harbour, then the village with the fishing shacks, and we'll cut across
Pebble Cobble Beach joins 2 headlands, and just coming into view is a Rudeys Head, an erosional scarp. It reaches just over 15 meters. It has quite a boulder cobble lag in front of it, and on the landward side there's a spit made up of a whole complex of recurve ridges.